Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Syd Banks to people throughout the world. Today, we have Samantha Hurst with us. Samantha is an author, artist, and coach who discovered the three principles in 2013 after many years of searching for an answer to anxiety and depression. In 2014, she had a life-changing insight via the three principles, which showed her that she had spent many years looking in the wrong direction for the answers to her problems. The profound changes she experienced led her to become a teacher and a coach of this profoundly life-changing understanding. She has since become a sought-after teacher with a successful private practice, as well as a guest speaker at events and on podcasts and webinars. She's recently written the published book, Pourings of Love, which is available on Amazon worldwide. And I'm going to put the link to Samantha's website underneath the recording when it's on YouTube, so you'll be able to learn more about her and read more. So, Samantha, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you everyone that showed up. It's lovely to see your faces, and it's all new people to me as well. So that's pretty wonderful. I guess as it's my first 3PGC webinar, I'll talk a little bit about my experience and how I found the principles. My background was that of my 20s and 30s were very much spent in the world of seeking. I spent a lot of time in Asia and in India. I don't know if any of you have heard of Osho. I spent about a year in his commune in Pune in India, and there was always felt in my life like there was a place to get. There was somewhere that I could get where suddenly life would become easy, problems would fall away. I would kind of float through the world. You know, I'd be kind of untouched by it, and I'd have this kind of deep experience, and it was very much searching for that. That was something was missing, so I was searching for that for quite a long period of my life. I left Asia, I think I was 30, and I came home, and then my seeking continued here, and during that time I became a naturopathic doctor, and I was very much in the natural health world, very much in what I would call the spiritual world of that time. Reading lots of texts, retreats, lots of meditation, and it felt like there was still this void, there's something missing, this place to get, and I could still enjoy life, but it was always this kind of unknown essence to it that I knew was there, but I couldn't find it. And what that actually led me to, strangely enough, was having a very, very intense breakdown. And I think I was around 37 when that happened. And I literally woke up one morning from having okay mental health, maybe, you know, like all of us, some odd anxieties and some fears and some down days, to actually having a very, very, very severe breakdown where, you know, I woke up and I was just in hell. That's probably my best way to describe it. It was very dark. I had very, very disturbing, intrusive thoughts. I was shaking. I felt like I couldn't leave my house, and it was like I couldn't work out what had happened. It just seemed like there was nothing particularly going on in my life that felt like it would have led me to such an extreme situation. So I spent probably around 6 weeks in my room in that state, trying to solve it with the things that I knew and the people that I knew, because obviously I'd been in that world, so I knew a lot of therapists and a lot of people that could help me, and nothing seemed to really touch it. And then I found myself at a place, a traditional psychology, psychotherapy institution, and they said, "Oh, you've had a psychotic break, and you know, we obviously we don't know why it's happened. It just can happen. It's left you with this anxiety, depression. It's like a list of mental health issues." And I was like, okay, so what do I do about this? And obviously it was medication. I chose not to take most of the medication. I did take sleeping tablets because I felt that if I could get through the day and know that in the evening I could take something, get some sleep, and wake up the next day that I could cope with life. So life had suddenly become something that was a real struggle. You know, it was a really dark place to live. I had a son, I think at the time he was 7, so I had a real reason for living. But my world just became so hellish, so dark, so terrifying. And my intrusive thoughts became, they were constant. You know, I would sit, there would be no peace until I took that tablet in the evening. And this went on. And looking back, how I got through it, I mean, the human resilience is amazing, because, you know, when I look back and think that I got through every day like that, it's pretty phenomenal. And so what would happen is I would find different therapies, and what they'd do is be like a sticking plaster. So I'd never really feel okay, but I'd try things, and trying things gave me hope, and it made me feel a little bit better. But I'd always seem to come back to something. I'd always have these intrusive thoughts to some degree. I'd have a day of anxiety. The next day would be depression. I'd be very, very nervous, like noises and being in the house and all sorts of things. It was like I was scared of everything, like even my own thinking, which I think may have been top of the list. I think maybe my own thinking was something that I was really terrified of. So it just became this thing that I accepted, actually, to be honest. So what I would do is I would try these different therapies, knowing that they'd help a little bit, but accepting that, you know, now I was mentally ill, and now this was just some way that I'd have to live. And that actually lasted for nearly 7 years. So I had nearly 7 years of living in this state of just managing my experience of life, just managing to get through every day, you know, just ticking the days off. I've got through another day. I'm here for my son. I've cooked him dinner. You know, there were small victories like going to a nativity, or, you know, just being able to do those things, and I'd do them, and I'd notice I'd be sat and I'd have nail marks in my hands because I'd be so tense while I was sat trying to be in the world. And I'd always retreat home. And as you can imagine, being in that state, my world became smaller and smaller, because I just felt, you know, my safety would be in my bedroom at home. So I pushed myself to do things, but back to my safety. So at the end of around 7 years, I found somebody that he was actually an NLP practitioner. And he'd just come across the principles and was actually training with Jamie Smart on his Clarity program. I think this was 2013. And he said, I've just found this thing called the principles, and I think it's really going to help you. And I was a terrible student. I was like, no, I can't see. He said, he was like mind, consciousness, thoughts. Like, God, I spent a year in India. I know about consciousness. I mean, I was a real pain in the ass. And so I was like, okay, I'll do a deal with you. We'll do the NLP. And at the end, you can add on a bit of these principles. Okay, I will listen. And he must have started talking to me about them in September 2013. And in February 2014, so I'd only see him once a month, and we'd do like 10-15 minutes of him talking about the principles. And in the February, I remember him saying something, and I heard something. I just heard something different, like, oh, I thought I knew that, but that feels different to the way that I knew it. And I can't tell you what it was at that time, because I don't actually have a memory of what exactly it was, but it kind of felt like a shift. And I came home, and the next day I got really sick. And I'd get sick a lot during those 7 years, because I think body, mind, the connection. So I was always coming down with things. And I got quite sick, and I was in my bed, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to look for a book on this. I'm going to see what this thing is about. What are these 3 principles? And I went online, and I found Michael Neill's Inside Out Revolution. And I think that was on the Monday, and it was delivered on the Tuesday. And on the Tuesday night, I had the most profound experience I've ever had in my life, in my bedroom, in England on a winter's evening. And it was just suddenly I thought, it's so hard to describe, as we know, but it was just this profound moment, this insight into that my whole experience of my life, let alone the last 7 years, was a creation of thought. And I saw that incredibly deeply. And after 7 years of having this torment in my mind went quiet. Without the use of a sleeping tablet, it just suddenly went completely. It was like someone had poured cool water over my mind, and it just washed everything away. And I just suddenly felt happy. And and I started laughing. And everything just seemed so ridiculous. It was just how it's really weird to say that whole 7 years of torment suddenly seemed really funny. And I remember laughing. I remember just feeling so light and so clear and so present, and just this laughter. And that actually lasted for around 3 days to some degree. And in my conceitedness, I felt that I got enlightened, and that was it. And I was going to stay like this forever. And what happened? But what actually happened was I came back. And came back after about 3 days. I started to come back into the world again, into my personal thinking, but I was okay. So some of the thinking came back, some of the feelings came back, but it was nowhere near as intense. And I knew that what I'd seen there was the thing that I was searching for outside of myself for all those years, that I'd suddenly found in my bedroom on a Tuesday night, that was in me. It was never out there. So it was this, it was so, it's hard to describe. It was just mind blowing. It was just suddenly I was back. Suddenly I had a life again. I would say the first year wasn't completely easy. The first year I would dip in and out. So I'd have days in some torment, but then days that I was okay. But I knew that in all these years of looking, I'd never found anything that touched me so profoundly. So I knew there was nowhere else to look. I knew that these principles had what I was looking for. So I continued my journey. I found somebody local to me in Essex called Stephen Desborough. I began speaking with him. He's now a very good friend. And I found Dick and Bettinger. And that kind of just, again, deepened it. Just deepened my understanding, deepened what I saw. And over that year, my mental health just blossomed. I just came back to life. I came back to enjoying life. I came back to seeing that it was never the world. It was never something outside of me, that everything I could ever need was within. And as the name of this webinar is, I fell back in love with life. So it was, I actually never ever thought that would happen again. I didn't know I could be happy again. So the absolute joy of being able to see that and being able to wake up and be wake up happy. I used to wake up with dreadful thoughts, and I woke up happy, and it was like, oh, wow. And I knew that if that was available to me, that was available to everybody, because there was no way that there was anyone that couldn't see this if I could see it after my experience. So then I started to inquire into teaching it. I did quite a few retreats with Rudy and Jenny, Kennard at the time, and I just really kind of threw myself in understanding it as deeply as I could. And then, as I was such an example of it, I think people kind of decided that they'd like to speak to me about it. So it was almost my experience was the light that brought them to the principles, because it was like, well, you're so different. What's happened? You were like that for ages, and like suddenly you're okay. And well, I need to find out about this. What's happened to you? So yeah, that was the beginning of my career of teaching it, and it happened quite quickly. You know, I had clients quite quickly, and it's, you know, it's built from there. And I just feel so lucky. I just feel so blessed, and my passion is to help others fall back in love with their life, to see that your relationship with the world has nothing to do with the world. Your relationship to the world is always you. You know, it's like it was so funny, because it was almost as if, how did I not see this before? I almost felt like a bit of an idiot. So how did I not know that? How did I not notice thought? How did I not notice that my state of mind is what I project onto the world. That what comes through me is the world. Not that this world is creating my experience. And I saw that all that suffering was me believing my own thinking. And that this thing, this essence that I was looking for, was already it. There's nothing to, I'd covered it up by looking for it. That was the funny thing. Me looking for it was me telling myself that I wasn't it, and going further away from it. So yeah, it's always these distractions. And this is something that actually I've seen again more recently, a little bit deeper, is that like my selfishness, and it was an innocent selfishness, but everything was about me back then, protecting how I felt, protecting my world, making sure I was okay. And that, the egocentricness of me thinking it was all about me, and the principles kind of, and seeing what I saw just took that away. So I became interested in other people again. I became concerned about other people. I saw that if I'm always okay, I don't really need to worry about myself. I can actually focus on others and find out what's going on for them. And it was a genuine interest. A real genuine interest in what's your experience? Where is that coming from? And hopefully having conversations that point people back to what I saw, because all I was ever doing was looking for an outside cause. My world was, there's this problem with me, and it must come from the outside world. So I'm going to focus intently on me and the outside world and work out what that problem is for me to get better. And it was never that. It was never the outside world. There's never an outside cause for our problems. And, even now I'm like, really? I'm like, never. It always has to be us. Nothing outside creates my feelings. And there's such freedom in that. There's such a freedom to see these principles and to wake up to the neutrality of the world that we live in. And in seeing thought, in seeing this neutrality, that our personal thinking kind of falls away. And then there's this doorway to something divine. And there's this doorway to this perfection, to all the things that I'd studied, when I was younger in the commune and in spiritual texts. It's like, oh, it's just there. It's who I am. It's underneath all the things that I thought it was. Because my thinking isn't it. My thinking is seeing thought, becoming aware of awareness and seeing thought allowed me to go beyond it. To see that where thought comes from, that's the place. That's it, where life comes from. That's the essence. That's where everything that I was looking for was. And just had to challenge my own thinking to see it. I just had to see who I was to see it. I had to really see who I wasn't as well. Suddenly, I'm not really a mentally ill person. I'm not really all these labels that I've given myself and that the world has given me. I'm this essence, I'm this life force that comes through and has this experience of the world, moment to moment. And then that freedom in just being alive, just coming back to the moment, not having to work anything out. It's a Leonard Cohen quote. The less of me there was, the happier I got. And I love that. It's been so true. And sitting here and telling my story, and yeah, I still get caught up in me, and I still get caught up in my problems, and thought can appear real, and that's great too. That's not wrong. That's being human. But what I have is this understanding that I know where home is. I know no matter how lost I get, I know that I'll always come home. It's always who I really am, where my experience comes from, that I can touch, and all the perceived problems that are in my world in that moment dissolve. And that's true for me, and when I work with my clients, it's this dissolution of what looks real to what is just appearing. And we know that what appears changes, because something new will appear, and thought will change, and experience will change. And we'll just keep coming home over and over again. I liken it to as if there's an orchestra playing and I'm dancing. I'm not in charge of what the dance is, but I dance in and out. But sometimes I'm seeing who I am, sometimes I'm not. That's not up to me. Because going back into my history, if I could choose, I'd always be at peace, at one, seeing who I really am. But actually now, with the understanding the principles, I really enjoy my humanness. I really enjoy that I get to, now you see it, now you don't. You know, it's fun to be alive. And if you'd have seen me in that 7 years, you'd have been like, wow, she's saying it's fun to be alive. I remember I had a friend that went to Australia. I think she'd been around the whole time, and this was, so she'd known me before the 7 years, and then during the 7 years, and she went to live in Australia for 6 months. And I said, you've got to read this book. So you know what it's like when you first find it. You've got to read this book, Inside Out Revolution. You've got to get it. She went, oh, I'll get it when I get home. I went, oh, okay. I went, well, hope you have a good time. Life's for living. And the fact that I put that in the email, she's like, I'm getting that book right now. She's like, she's saying life's for living. So yeah, it is. It's like, we're not who we think we are. We don't have to be the version of ourselves that we believe that we are. We can constantly change. We're shedding, constantly shedding. And that's via the principles. It's like, what's not true? Well, none of it's true. So who am I? Well, you are who, however you show up in the moment. You're an expression of consciousness showing up. And then you're an expression of consciousness showing up. And then you're an expression of consciousness showing up. And that is it. So then it's like, wow, the freedom in that to live your life, to let go of what you think you should be. You know, I think Dickens said to me once very early on, like, stop shoulding all over yourself. Like, there's nothing you have to be. And there's a real joy in that. It's almost as if the world told us, especially in our Western world, is like, as we grow up, that you have to be something. Yeah, you have to be this, you have to be that. You know, in any way, like as a woman, you have to be like that, or in your work, you have to be that, and in your family, like we have an identity with the family that might be slightly different with our friends, and but there's versions of us and how we show up in the world, and all of that is all made up. And I think the authenticity of who we are comes through as our beliefs dissolve, as who we think we are falls away. To kind of wake up to this beautiful truth that we're just this momentary expression. So then it's not as serious. Well, I can go through some pretty serious things now, and I'll take them seriously to a certain extent, but it doesn't have a weight. That makes sense. No weight to it. It's like the only weight I ever carry is my own thinking. Yeah. So I can deal with stuff and I can show up. But I know if I'm going into the realm of being very serious and, really overthinking, I'm probably not going in the right direction. It's probably not going to benefit me. Just step back. Just hold on. What am I doing here? And I'll still do it. I'm sure if I get to live another 30 years, I'll still be doing it. But again, it's knowing where to look, knowing that there's always something deep within that is untouched. Something that's always okay no matter what. And that my thinking isn't something to be scared of. That I can have a really bad thought. It doesn't really mean anything. That was like, when I realised that, when I realised I wasn't broken, when I realised even my thinking wasn't actually personal, it didn't say anything about me. And that was a real get out of jail free card. It was, a big insight, the not broken one. So that's my story and how I came to it and how I see it, and I'm sure that will keep unfolding. I'm sure there'll be so much more to see. I know I've only scratched the surface, but even that scratch has changed my life so much. Even that scratch has shown me the true depths of the human experience. It's shown me that all these apparent separate realities, in truth, they all melt and we all become one. And that's home. So I'd love to hear from anybody that has any questions or any reflections, or just wants to have a chat with me. And
I think at this point in time, everybody knows how to. Some Vera is on. I was just going to say, please feel free to unmute yourself, or everybody probably knows how to raise their hand by now on Zoom since we've been doing it so much. So Vera?
Hi, Vera.
Hiya. I just wanted to thank you. I'm just sitting here purring. It's delicious to listen to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. And I guess if I have a question, it would be, how has it affected your parenting?
Yeah, hugely. Thank you for the question. I think because of the place that I lived in, so my breakdown was from when my son was 7 to around 13, maybe 6 to 12, around that age anyway. And I was incredibly anxious as a parent. I mean, I believe I was always a great parent. I was always there for him. I brought him up on my own with the help of my mum. And I was doing everything that he did. I was there. He had dinner every night. I was, even during that breakdown, I still considered myself a great mum, but I was very anxious. I was very kind of frightened for him. I was very much the future. I was always thinking, oh God, how am I going to cope? So, you know, as I said about the breakdown, it makes you really egocentric when you're focusing on yourself so much in that way through any mental illness. So it was like, oh, is he going to be okay? How am I going to cope if he's not okay? I was always kind of forward thinking it. So like when he was 7, I'd be like, oh, what about when he's going to go to big school? How's that going to be? Or, you know, when he's older and he starts going out, and it was always this future, this imagined future where he wasn't going to be okay. So that was something that I lived in my head. And what the principal's going to mean is that I've become so relaxed as a parent. You know, I allow, and I was very much like this anyway, in allowing him to be who he needs to be. I've always been a great believer in that, and that he'll find his way. But I'm definitely different. I don't project worry onto him. I don't do any of that. And I did do that for a while. So that has come out of my parenting, and that's huge. You know, just not to project your worry onto your child is massive. What other ways? I guess as well, the lightness in the relationship. We laugh a lot. You know, we get on. He's 18 now, and we get on. You know, it's nearly 19. We get on very well. You know, we went out yesterday and we hang out. I mean, I get on his nerves, obviously, but there's still this. There's just an ease in the relationship. And if one of us does, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've ever really had a proper argument, but if one of us does kind of get upset or get a bit angry, it's like pretty quickly, it's, oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And he sees it in his own way. He wouldn't admit that, but I know he sees it in his own way. And I'm so grateful that it's a gift that I've been able to give to him. You know, not sitting there teaching it to him, but just by example. He loves Michael Neal, so it's like sometimes I might be watching something. He even actually went to see Michael Neal with me once years ago, and he'll be like, if Michael Neal's on, he'll come and he'll have a look. I don't say anything. I'm like, okay, you know. So he does listen. So I think it's that. I think anything with children, it's not, you can't push it onto them. You know, you can't do anything, but you can live your life as an example of it, and at some point they will see that. And I think we show up more fun, much lighter. Thank you for your question. You got anything else? Thank you. Has anyone else got anything? Tom.
Hi, Samantha.
Hi, Tom.
I'm so grateful to meet you, and it was just so beautiful listening to you. It was almost like listening to like really beautiful music, and it could have gone on and on. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
I was just kind of curious, when you work with people, what is that like for you? Do you sort of witness the light bulb going off in people, or I imagine it's very varied, people's responses and reactions, and who sees it and who doesn't see it. I'm just kind of curious, any stories or any just kind of reflection on what that's like for you.
Well, how I show up with people is almost, I'm just a vessel for the principals. So I never, I think what I've trusted over time is that I will allow the principals to speak through me. So I don't have an agenda. The person sits there, and I can get, again, new client, I can think, oh, I wonder how it's going to go, and you know, the connection. But what I've seen over time is if someone sat in front of me, they're meant to be with me. Mm. So then when I speak, it's about the connection more than the words. It's about sort of listen to them, see what comes through me, and just have that point where you connect before the words. And to me, that's where they're really going to start hearing stuff. And it is so different with every client. And it's really, what I've find so interesting is I can say something, I think, that's an odd thing for me to say, and the client will go, oh my God, that really relates to me. or when they'll sit there and they'll suddenly have an insight and they'll put it in their own words. It's like, oh, so imagine this house, and this house was on fire, and I'll go, I've never said that. I've never had that analogy. I've never put it like that. But the principles has given them the perfect way for them to see it. Like, I had a client last week, and I said something about Bruce Lee. I did a Bruce Lee quote. I was like, oh, I didn't even know I knew that quote. And he was like, oh my God, it was to do with martial arts. He was like, oh my God, I do martial arts. That really makes sense to me. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's just so funny how it works. It's so interesting. And I think over time, what I've learned is to just really trust that and to really allow the person their experience and try not to manage it in any way. Just sit there, be open, connect, and allow them to see whatever they need to see. And the light bulb moment could be in the room with me. It could be going for a walk. It could be sitting by the sea. It could be watching a movie. It could be listening to a song. It could be in the middle of an argument. But just that moment, what I see as us as coaches and practitioners is we're planting seeds. And those seeds come from the connection, come from the conversation, and that the blooming of that seed will happen when it's completely right for that person. And that has nothing to do with me. I'm just kind of there, I'm just pointing. I just point them home. But, occasionally you do see it in the room and it's like, oh. But as I said, it's so different. It's so different for everyone. And I work with couples as well, and one will really get it quickly and the other one will take a little bit longer, and you can see the dynamic changing, and then the one that gets it trying to kind of talk to the partner, and yeah, it's so interesting. It's so interesting in all the ways, 7.5 billion separate realities, and I really believe there's 7.5 billion different ways of seeing it, because each one of us is going to see it unique in the way that we need to see it. But what we're so blessed that, we have these people that point us home, and that doesn't even have to be a coach, People can have conversations with their friends that understand it and just see it and just have an awakening. I mean, yeah, a recent course I did, a woman at 30 years, and I think I suffered with my 7 years. This wonderful woman had 30 years of it, and she just saw it, and it was just so beautiful to see. Suddenly, 60s, she woke up, life became fresh and fun, and she just had no, again, like I did, there was no idea that was available. Sometimes that at the beginning, when you work with someone with mental health issues, it's even just them knowing that that's available is refreshing and different. Because a lot of people just believe that that's it. So to suddenly have someone point back to your well-being and the fact that you're not broken and you just need fresh salt to be okay, it's kind of revolutionary, especially in the world of mental health. So it's a real joy to point people home. And in my work, I do start with thought. I think with mental health, it's a great place to start. But then it's holding their hand and taking them back to the fullness, to where the experience comes from. And to me, that's the journey that I go on with my clients. And then when that opens up, it's, even in this year, in this world, it's a beautiful world. That's what's really interesting. So the people I'm working with this year, and they're seeing it, 2020 is probably a really good year for them, because we know when we wake up to this, it's a great year. It's like, oh my God, I've found something that's changed my life. It's made it so much better. So yeah, it's interesting. So it's not, back to what we've experienced this year. No matter what it looks like, that's not what's created our feelings. Is that okay, Tom? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's really beautiful, and I'm glad you're doing doing this work and helping people, because so many people need something. I guess had a pretty profound insight about a year ago, and I noticed that when I talk to people, visiting my family who's far away, and how naturally it is to share like what happened to me, and I had conversations with my family that I'd never had before, and it was just so easy and natural because something that I saw, and there's a lot of I think it's pretty universal, but a lot of people in my family have struggled with depression and anxiety, and it came up, and I just started sharing, and it was so interesting because it wasn't at all about trying to convince anybody. It was just kind of just sharing, this is what happened to me, and to hear, just sort of see little light bulbs go off in people just in the course of that, talking to people. And I feel like the biggest thing recently that I've been seeing with people, like I don't, first of all, I've been very happy these past 2022, even for everything that's happened. And we had a full week here in Oregon where we couldn't go outside because the smoke was so bad from the fires. And, I felt the sort of the immediate fear, and I felt some fears about, oh, what is the smoke doing to us? But but I felt very happy, even though I was totally restricted in going out. But so I don't really get to see people very often or talk to them. But one thing that's been really alive for me is I just see people's wisdom now. Everything they say, like I see this wisdom. Someone's telling me about a breakup, and I'm just seeing wisdom, and I reflect. I do say that to people because I'm so moved by their insights and wisdom, but they don't realize sometimes that how wise they are. So I just think that's I think it's a gift that we all have for people. Like if we've seen a little bit of something and we see other people, they don't even know sometimes that they know it. So that's the best way I can describe it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. So how you see wisdom in everyone, I see the mental health, the well-being. So I can't not see it. Yeah, it's that's really great that we see that in people. That if we think that this is we're all energy, that there's this the principles ultimately point back to this one source that creates all things, then us seeing that must be so beneficial. It's like a light on. Because as I said, it's not all the connection. So you're in dialogue with someone, you're creating a connection, and what you're seeing, even if it's unspoken, is part of that. There's so much more than we understand. I mean, we try and understand it with our tiny minds, but to me, there's so much more.
Yeah.
And just sitting with someone that's seen it, that looks at you as healthy and wise, that's really that's really unusual. People aren't walking around doing that. It's a real gift that we give to people.
I just want to say one last thing because I want to give other people a chance, but I remember something that just came out of me in a conversation with a friend who was like struggling with something. And I just had this metaphor. I said, the same intelligence and the same wisdom that, like, how to get home from here, right? You know how to get home from where you are now to where your home is. And I was like, that's the same intelligence that will solve any problem. And I wasn't trying to solve anybody's problem. I just had this metaphor, like, oh my God. And it really touched me because there's only like one intelligence, and it's the same intelligence, whether it's getting home or solving a problem or like seeing an insight. So
Absolutely, I love that. Yeah, yeah, and that's it's always like it's so simple when we see it, isn't it? When we see it's like that's really simple. You know, it's like we overcomplicate it, and it's in its simplicity. It's the principles are so relaxed. It's like, oh yeah, it's just that. You know, this profound truth that when we see it, it's in those moments where it's like it's simplified, it's dumbed down. We go, oh, of course. So much of me gets in the way, so much of my intellect. And then suddenly you just have this moment of clarity, and it's like, oh, of course it's that. Like, I did a group here a couple of weeks ago, and we all spent the day together, and it was really lovely. And we went really deep, and we spoke about, you know, the illusion. You know, ultimately, this is, and Syd spoke of it. You know, the great illusion. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm part of I'm the illusion too." So what? You know, no wonder I get caught up. You know, I'd seen that before, but I saw it more simply than I'd ever seen it. Of course, I'm part of the illusion. My thinking is part of the illusion. Who I think I am is part of the illusion. So, oh, okay. So, oh, that's fun. So then I haven't got anything to do. I don't have to work anything out. Everything always comes through. I think, you know, that wisdom, it's always comes through at the right time. It's just that maybe our agenda, maybe we think, oh, that's not the right time. But it can't not be the right time. Everything's in perfect order. Our whole experience is timed perfectly for us. It's just sometimes we argue with that. We resist it. We you know, back to falling in love with our life is accepting our life exactly as it is. It is nothing to do with a set of circumstances. It's this moment as it is, in deep acceptance, I can fall in love with it. And if that's non-circumstantial, that potential is for everybody. And that's what I love about this as well. There's no hierarchy. There's no one I speak to that they're not going to get it. We can think that, but that's just thought. That's just not a truth. With this understanding is for everybody. Everybody has the potential to see this truth. And that's so incredibly exciting. That's so amazing in this world. You know, we don't have to live in fear. We don't have to live in those manifestations of fear. You know, fear can visit, it comes and goes. We don't have to live in depression. You know, we can have moments of it. We can have sad moments. But we don't have to live our lives in these states of mind that we felt were stuck, were who we were. So it's like if someone comes to me and is like, oh, I'm a depressed person, and it's no, you have depressed thinking. You know, it's like creating that detachment so that it's a visitor. It's just a visitor. It's not something that says anything about who you are. It's a feeling. It's a visitor that comes and goes. You don't have to live with any feeling forever. Everything comes and goes. Again, if it comes and it goes, then it becomes so much less scary. It's a manifestation of thought, and it passes. We don't have to manage it. We don't have to fix it. We don't have to do anything about that. It's okay. Oh, that's how I feel today. Well, I'll get on with my day. some point during the day, you probably won't feel like that anymore. Because it's a wave of thought feeling. We are that wave. That's us, that's our human expression. We get to feel all of it, we get to experience all of it, we get to have insights, we get to get caught in thought, we get to have deep experiences of being at one with the world. We get all of it. And yeah, I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Tom. Has anyone got anything else? We've got some time. I'm happy to carry on. I think I'll read something to you then. It's from Eckhart Tolle. People believe themselves to be dependent on what happens for their happiness. That is to say, dependent on form. They don't realise that what happens is the most unstable thing in the universe. It changes constantly. They look upon the present moment as either marred by something that has happened and shouldn't have, or as deficient because of something that has not happened but should have. And so they miss the deeper perfection that is inherent in life itself, the perfection that is always already here, that lies beyond what is happening or not happening, beyond form. Accept the present moment and find the perfection that is deeper than any form and untouched by any time. See, what I've found when I've found the principles was that all of the seeking and the studying, everything that I'd read and listened to, really made sense. I thought I got it back then, but once I had the principles, all of this understanding was like, oh, that's what they meant. That was a really wonderful thing to suddenly have a real kind of deep insight into what these teachers were pointing to, and not having to use them as a means to get anywhere. So that was what was quite different as well. They weren't now a means for me to find something. They were just a means for me to read something and to enjoy it and see what I saw from it. So that was really lovely. That was a real different experience. And again, we just do what appears right to us. You know, we know with the principles, it's always descriptive. We're never going to tell anyone what to do. You know, if you want to meditate. If you want to, well, you know, whatever it is, it's like there's no rules. It's kind of, it comes back to it's your life and you do what seems right for you. Always with this deeper understanding of where the experience is coming from. Never with an agenda. So for me, I don't meditate anymore. I used to a lot. And I came across the principles and I've dipped in and out. But if I do, it's never with a means of getting anywhere or finding anything, or so I'll see what this experience is like. So life becomes experiences, not things we're doing to get somewhere. It's like the agenda, that's it, the agenda falls away. We have so much less of an agenda on life. We show up and we just experience it and see what turns up, see how it turns out. Because if we're already okay, life doesn't have to provide us with anything. We can play and have fun. We know, I love the movie analogy, so who we really are is the screen and what we think we are is the movie. And the screen's unharmed by what the movie never damages the screen, ever. So when we know that, we can play in the movie. We can get caught up, we can get scared, we can do things, we can not do things, we can have experiences, we can feel, we can laugh, we can cry. But in the deepest sense, we know that who we are is never touched by that. It's, in fact, it's from there that those experiences come from. And to me, that's the beauty of the principles. Knowing where we come from, knowing we're always okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Has anyone got anything before we finish? I really appreciate you all turning up.
Yeah,
So lovely to share with you.
that was so beautiful, Samantha. I love your story. I love the way you share it. I think it was Tom that said it was like listening to music, listening to you share your story and talk about the principles. Really, really beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much, Bonnie.
Yeah, loved it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight or this afternoon or wherever you are. And I just want to let you know the next webinar is on November 4th, and it's with Cassandra Ogier. So hopefully we will see you then. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, 3PGC, for having me. Thank you, everyone.